We're, as a caucus, willing to stand to work with the governor. We're early on in the budget process, but we do not want the governor to use our communities as a scapegoat in identifying ways that he says he's helping the neediest, but there's no true compassion in any of his suggestions today on how to really help the minority community with job creation, how to help us in health care or any of our social services. I really didn't hear a clear-cut answer on how we're going to fund child care. We have been working with the governor for the last couple weeks on trying to locate dollars to fund child care, and we still today have not yet learned how he planned on doing this and how soon it will happen.
It's critical that we sustain vibrant workforces in our neighborhoods and in the state, and a real criminal justice reform will do that, because hiring more prison guards is a part of the solution, but it is quite not the key to reforming our justice system. We need to put more money in the communities, as the governor spoke about, making sure that recidivism is reduced. So again, we need to train and hire counselors and truant officers that will help children make good choices as they grow up and see all the options available to them. A large part of the criminal justice reform entitles providing employment opportunities and empowerment services to those that are at risk of becoming burdens to the state. So our charge as a caucus is to make sure that we do everything we can to help shape a real criminal justice reform system.
You know, one of the true and the most important things is our health and being able to provide jobs. You know, when you talk about jobs, when you talk about opportunities, a job changes the attitude of individuals who are receiving a decent wage, who are able to provide for their children, who are able to provide attitude of self-sufficiency, self-reliance. And there was no mention of creating jobs in our most vulnerable communities, as he continued to use the words vulnerable. Summer employment. It gives our youth an opportunity to earn wages, gives them an opportunity to have some structure and discipline in their life, to be able to show up on time, to be able to be responsible. These are important issues, not just earning dollars, but teaching them life skills. When you talk about creating jobs, people will not go to work if they don't have access to quality health care. Eliminating some of your dentistry, your podiatry, and other services just doesn't work. Who can go to work when they're sick? Who's going to go to work when they have problems in their mouth and don't have access to quality health care? When you talk about jobs, it's all about giving people hope and opportunity to be successful, to be self-sufficient. And he talked generally about jobs, but he did not focus on those who are most vulnerable. And I would request that the governor address those issues to make sure that we're giving everybody hope and opportunity to be successful in this state. And as he said, make it the great state that it should be.
The linchpin to our communities truly is indeed education. The crux of it is money. The governor has talked about increasing funding, but that's not enough. What we need to be talking about is fully funding education here in the state of Illinois, and that goes way beyond $300 million. I believe it's about $800 million is what we need to at least fully fund levels of education at the appropriate place, where we know that our students will receive the quality education that they need. And there's no way that we can talk about fully funding education without addressing the issue of poverty. Poverty is key in addressing the needs of our children as it relates to education. One of the problems that we see in a lot of our school districts as it relates to education are the truancy issues, expulsions, suspensions. Myself and Senator Lightfoot have embarked on a journey to try to fix the way schools address those issues, to try to create opportunities where students are not always just simply suspended and taken out of school for the challenges that they have, and that schools are working in cooperative with the families to make sure that they address the needs of the students, to make sure that they can stay in school, continue to receive the appropriate education, continue to learn. We ultimately want them to be productive members of society. Our achievement gap is something that we have to address. And again, the crux of that is money. It's resources. We need those resources to empower our schools to make the appropriate decisions to close the achievement gaps of our students, to make sure that our children in the African American community are reading at the appropriate levels in both reading and math, as well, all the tools necessary. Our schools need money for technology. Technology is driving our world today. They need money to make sure that they have iPads or tablets that students can learn, that access to the internet is never a problem with students, so they can communicate not only nationwide but also globally. It's very important that we work to try to provide that level of sustainability for our students. Without money, we wind up cutting arts programs. We cut foreign language programs. Our schools are not able to provide the level of after school and extracurricular activities that they need so that our students can grow not only in their minds but also their physical selves and their bodies can grow as well. So we must provide these resources to our school, and we must also provide resources for after-school funding as well, whether that's through community-based organizations or also using the school buildings. After 3 or 4 o'clock, those buildings go empty. There's no activity in them. So these dollars can help those schools stay open so they can provide the safe haven that's necessary for our young people, so they're not just wandering the streets of their community, that they can grow, that they can learn, and they can be safe, and that we can sustain our young people in our community. So we need our administration to step up and recognize what's really necessary in education funding, not just put a Band-Aid on it, but actually fully fund education to the right level that it needs to be so that we can always educate our children to the appropriate level.
The governor's first shot in looking at Medicaid, as he has outlined in what we are looking at as his manifesto for FY 2016, is far from being compassionate. It's everything but. The cuts that he is proposing, a $1.5 billion cut to Medicaid, will not only be harmful, but it will be devastating, and the life, which is now the lifeblood to many people, not only for their health, but also for the jobs that it creates as well. We have to look at what he has done and how he has proposed this slash and burn budget, a slash and burn budget which he has effectively and efficiently done. We have to be responsible in our words, we have to be responsible in our actions. This is the first salvo being fired by the governor, but we as a community must stand strong to ensure that those dollars are there, not only for individuals as they're going through the system, but those mental health agencies and also providers are also taken care of to ensure the well-being of our community at large.
Those of us that serve in the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus, we serve every region throughout the entire state of Illinois. And the $600 million proposed cut by Governor Rauner to the LGDF fund would effectively put a 9-figure cut on the city of Chicago, over $100 million cut to the city of Chicago if he were to be able to get this $600 million cut. Many of our downstate communities, Peoria, Champaign, Rockford, East St. Louis, and all of the other suburban Chicago communities would have multi-million-dollar cuts to their fund, and many of these communities have already come together, already passed a balanced budget, and now we're going to be coming back. We're going to be instituting another cut on those budgets. Let's be honest about what this is. We're cutting local funds. So now many of the services that we're receiving at the local level, in order for those services to remain intact, our local communities are going to have to enact another tax in order to be able to keep up with those same services. We must be honest about what's being proposed today. What's being proposed with the LGDF cut is a tax to local communities.
The proposed cut of advanced placement classes, that is significant. Many of the children in the African American community don't get to go to the selective enrollment schools. So what's left for them is advanced placement in the general high school, which often allows them to at the same time have college credits as they take the advanced placement classes. So to reduce that, we are reducing educational opportunity, and it's very dangerous. Now you say you're going to give free education for the first year or two of community colleges, but you have limited them at the high school level when they could have been taking advanced placement classes, and that would help them to get college credit at the same time.
I'm sure the governor may have had good intentions, but he forgot to talk about where the money was going to come from. So I know he's asking us for help, and I want to help the governor. I have House Bill 106, a financial transaction tax, so we don't have to reinstate the SMART Act, because the SMART Act was not smart at all. It was costing people their lives, their health, their liberty, and their right to seek freedom and happiness. And I want the governor to know that we do not have to pick on poor people to balance this budget. We could institute a SMART Act. And as far as health care is concerned, we're giving more money to the insurance companies that should be going to doctors and hospitals for access to care, not access to insurance. That's another discussion that we need to have. And as far as jobs, education, opportunity, if we want to eliminate the problems that we're having in the prisons, in the community, the first thing we're going to do is mandate schools reinstitute the job trades back into the schools again, and make sure education is accessible for everyone who wants to go to school, not those that just can afford it. Everyone who wants to attend school should have an opportunity to do so. So if we began with acknowledging the fact that the state of Illinois do have a revenue problem, and then we can move on from there. And as a result of us implementing the SMART Act, that will bring billions of dollars in to start solving the problems that we have in this state in regards to education, in regards to job training, in regards to sick people.
Every single legislator up here has some connection, direct connection, with either an alternative school or a university or college. A 31.5% budget reduction is pretty severe for a lot of our students. So the school may be in Champaign, it may be in Carbondale, but there are students all over, especially when you have University of Missouri, Mizzou, and University of Iowa, all these other schools around our state, in Indiana, usurping or sucking some of our talented students here who simply need an option or an opportunity to afford schools. And this governor, for some reason, did not get the memo that young people, older people who are in school, even at the community college level, need the needed resources to deal with the tuition problems or issues that we have. Lastly, the alternative school network that a lot of us, especially in the northeast portion of this state, depend on for some of our babies or our kids who simply run across issues and they need an option, an alternative. It goes up to about 21, 22 years of age, and it gives them a second lease on life to get their high school diploma so they can finish living out their dreams. So I look at this as a marathon of an educational process of our governor, who simply is new to the neighborhood. But we, as legislators in the House and Senate, have to provide the type of educational insight that he's clearly calling for, and trying to get him on the right level of clarification and understanding of why it's important not to make such severe cuts to some of our most vulnerable students.
Something that I really just wanted to make sure was clear, that even if we fund, and it's already inadequately funded K through 12, if you underfund higher education like the University of Illinois, Southern Illinois University, and all of our great universities in the state, you actually are closing off all of the talented people that we need to create in our state for the job market that he wants to increase. So we're doing some things that on one hand you take away from one and then you're supposed to give to another, and we can't move the state forward that way. So I really appreciate all of the leadership standing here. I appreciate all the leadership on the floor, that we are just entering discussions. And this discussion started off on a rocky road, but we intend to put it back on the right track. And I just want people to know that sometimes we say the word, we want to be competitive, but competitive could mean ruthless as well. And we got to be careful how we use words, compassionate and competitive. In one hand, we say cut out the after-school program, but we want to be compassionate. So we got to make sure we get the message to Illinois residents that we don't support what has come out today, but we do support ongoing conversations with the governor to get us on the right track.